We've got a beautiful garden. We've got red elk there at the moment and lots of different herbs and stuff. We've got lettuce sprouting out of the ground. I go pick it every morning to put with our fish and chips, and it's just a really nice vibe. It's like it's a grounding job, and mind you, it's definitely a challenge, but I feel like I've been rising to it.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Chiswick is one of the busiest high-end restaurants in Sydney, and yet it's a small team and kitchen. So how do they knock out the huge covers and maintain the high standards? Samuel Rozsnyoi is the head chef of Chiswick in Sydney. Sam, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you, Huck?
I'm good. We caught up last week where you cooked for many people. Busy restaurant, but Chiswick's always busy. What's things like at the moment?
I think it's getting a little bit busier, to be honest. I had a chat with the manager the other day and we were like, does it feel like we're getting at least 20 extra covers every lunch, And he's like, yes, he tends to agree. He's like, we need more staff. I'm like, yeah, I feel you, but it's I think it's steadily inclining, which it's a positive thing for me. It must seem that we're all doing a good job. And yeah, like the new menu, new vibe. So I think people are responding to it well.
You've been there for a little period of time as the new head chef. What's it been like for you stepping into such a busy restaurant and a different role for you?
It's definitely probably the biggest job I had to do by way of responsibility, staff. The venue itself as an institution is a long-standing beacon of Matt Moran's quality restauranting, and I'm taking every day as it comes, and there's a never-ending things to be done, and as you're at the event the other night, lots of events, lots of functions, and it's really good. I'm learning a lot as I go, and definitely the most challenging job I've had to do.
Matt Moran's a friend of the show. He's been on quite a few times. What's he actually like to work with?
Yeah, he's great. He tends to surprise me, during service, or he'll creep up from behind me and be like, mate, you got any chips or you got anything I can take? And starts eating my chicken carcasses, you know what I mean? And I'm like, he's just as I expected him to be. He's just a real down-to-earth Aussie bloke, that's been cooking, much like me since he was 14. And he's really great to work for sure.
Well, what was the brief for you when you got the gig? It's such an institution, as you mentioned as well. What's it like for you, sort of respecting that and also wanting to do your own thing? What's the plan there at Chiswick that you sort of have to sort of unpack?
Well, there's always been a narrative at Chiswick. We have a beautiful garden. We like to expose our diners to that, the whole garden to table thing. Obviously, we need to supplement our menu considering we're doing so many covers with beautiful produce from other producers. But just been definitely following the narrative of really seasonal. I've been trying to keep it simple and just, it's busy lunch to dinner, 7 days a week. So tackling that means that you have to sort of think on your feet and just be like, okay, let's just keep it simple, keep the prep simple, but be creative in a way that allows us to, stand out, from the crowd and try to create a bit of noise, from the inside for sure.
Yeah, you've been a great supporter of small producers in particular, and we'll get into sort of your career in a moment. But what's it like sort of trying to champion small producers in such a busy restaurant? Does that have its challenges?
Well, small producers are obviously hyper seasonal. So, I just try to get the produce where I can. Quints are really cheap at the moment from we're going through Parisi a lot in Sydney Direct and Romario Farms and stuff. And when I was at DSC, I was with Newcastle Green. So I've always tried to hero our small boutique, biologically sustainable growers and stuff. So when anything's, the price is good and it's in season, I grab it and, there was a lot of empty glass jars at Chiswick when I started. So I've been filling them up. I got fucking gas flying everywhere and bubbles, and people are complaining, the walls, they're splattered with fermented chili. I'm like, just clean it up and burp it and put it in the fridge. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to turn it into Noma a bit. Not really, but yeah, I'm using seasonal produce as it's available to me. Yeah.
So I think when we caught up last week, you were telling me that there was a new menu coming on. It's sort of colder now. Summer's left us. We're starting to drive towards
Yeah.
winter.
Maybe,
What's
maybe in Canberra it is, but we've literally cycled through 8 different seasons in a matter of 2 hours here today in Sydney. It's really like I don't hate the heat, but I definitely am a winter guy. Like I like to like snuggle up in bed and cry. You know, I'm joking. Um, no, so yeah, it's the new menu is it's kind of like a bit of a choose your own journey vibe. Like I made the grill pretty big. I made a little bit more snacks, you know, some lighter sharing plates, and then you get into the grill. There's about 7 items. I just want to keep growing it, and you know that's a matter of getting line caught fish from Chris Bolton or really nice beef from Vic's, and so it's meant to change. And then you have a choice of like 5 sauces. So you know, Diane, Bernays, Sherry Jus, Samarillo, and what's the last one? Curry butter, which is just going off. So, like for example, you can come in and get you know a plate of you know porchetta that we make in house, a couple of starters, some oysters, some nice bread, and then you can get the pork chop with curry butter. Next time you come in, you can get the pork chop with Diane if you want to. So I've sort of like wanted it to be. It's in my mind. It's been like a bit of a matrix, so people can come in and go, I might get this today or that today, and I want to just keep evolving that way and not just have like a stock standard, you know, read and repeat scenario. So
what's the response been to that sort of ability of the diner to sort of choose their own adventure?
it's been really good. Like I feel like going out to someone and congratulating them when they get like, you know, pork with curry butter or something that's a bit, you know, like, you know, not expected of them. So yeah, and people are just the tickets are getting bigger and bigger. We're selling more and more food. So we must be doing something right. It must be working. Yeah.
I want to explore sort of what you're doing and what you want to do down the track as well with this role at Chiswick. But take us back to when you were young. Whereabouts did you grow up, and was food sort of important to your family when you were young?
Yeah, I grew up in Gladesville. I don't know whether it's north, southwest, or my compass is really not my strong point. Same with maths. I actually have no idea where I am at any point in the day. But it was Gladesville. I think it's the eastern suburbs. And yeah, my mother was a great cook. She was a single mum. By the time I was 9, I think they broke up, and I just used to see my dad every Sunday, but he was never really in my life. So my mum had to take the reins, and she did whatever she could to pay the mortgage. And to her credit, still to this day, I don't know how she did it. Like, you know, she definitely fostered my work ethic in me. And I started working when I was 14. And, you know, on occasion, I'd get pulled out of school to help her clean a warehouse full of fridges. So it's like, you know, I still never got that $20. I think it went into the corned beef that we have for dinner. But no, she's honestly like still a really fantastic cook and still cooks dinner every night for my stepdad. And yeah, I really applaud her efforts.
Is there any sort of dish that you look back on fondly from that your mum cooked when you were a kid?
Still, her way to get me over, you know, is so she's Aussie. My dad was Hungarian, but she still cooks an amazing corned beef, and actually with like you know, cauliflower gratin and parsley sauce, and it's still her like the best way for her to get me over is be like, "You want some corned beef, mate?" I'm like, "Fucking earth, I do." And it's just it's almost like a budget cut, but like when done right, just the saltiness, and you know, like it's kind of like brisket, and it's just like yeah. So that's definitely my favorite.
Take us back to sort of when you first thought about chefing or being in hospitality. How did it happen? What was the lure, and what drew you in?
Well, I was in a cafe when I was 14, just turned 14. I was actually going there 5 days a week after school earning cash. So I was on the dishes for a year, and I think, you know, the structure and the organization, I started to enjoy the physicality of it too. I hated being there in the end. I was there for like 4 years, and I saw, you know, um, turnover of 3 different bosses. And like by the time I was 16, it was my second boss. And basically I was like doing everything in the cafe. It was a nice cafe, like lots of deli meats and like beautiful coffee and pastries and all that stuff. But that was definitely the first touch with hospitality. I tried to sort of get out of it when I was like 18 and do the whole retail thing, but and you know, but I wasn't into it. Actually, I moved out with my girlfriend at the time, and I actually didn't speak to my mum for about 7 years, and I moved in with my girlfriend. Yeah, we've had a tumultuous. It's all good. We're friends now. We're best friends now. But yeah, I moved to Five Dock, and basically her mother said organized not an apprenticeship, a trial at Glee Point Diner with Alex Kearns when I was 18, and I was like, yeah, I'll try it out. And then yeah, I remember my first day. I was like, "Holy shit, this is legit." I was like, you know, the structure, the aggression, the respect you can earn. I was like, I fell in love with it straight away, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna treat this like a sport. And I just kept going up from there. Like I just kept like my next job was always better than the last one, and it's actually continued to this day. So yeah.
Well, Glebe Point Diner is such a legendary tiny venue with delicious food. Do you have any stories of what it was like working with Alex?
You know what? He's a really funny bloke and he's a great leader. And like, definitely, it's still, I must have gone like a year and a half ago and it's just as good as it used to be. Like, it's super underrated. And he was great. We like literally made everything from scratch. I was going to TAFE at the same time, but I was learning obviously a lot more at work. We were making our own aioli. We were churning our own butter. We were making our own bomb Alaska, you know, like our own ice cream in a churner. So it was like a really great, you know, still one of the, you know, the key jobs that I learnt, still a lot of skills today, you know, as a young kid. And I think I was, you know, jumped on the fish section when I was about 19 and I was prepping whole fish, cooking whole fish. And yeah, I learnt a lot. I think I was there for about just under 2 years, and then I went to church at Sun.
Ah, well, how different was that kitchen?
Um, it was. I still think that was the heyday, like with Nick Wong. Like it was so tasty. It's a very small, challenging kitchen. You know the hibachi slash salamander wok section, like that corner is probably the hottest place in the world. And in summer, it get very hot. But no, being led by Nick and John Bartholomew, Sam Christie at the time, it was so tasty. I still go back, still get the pork katsu bun. Um, but I learnt a lot. Yeah, a lot of, you know, I'm using a ginger dressing at the moment. It's the exact same I learnt. How long was it? Like 12, 13 years ago? So yeah, I'm putting on a crudo at the moment. So it goes to show that, yeah, a lot of the stuff I'm doing it touches on my past and stuff.
As you started to build your career, what's been some of the really important venues and people that have sort of guided you to where you are?
Oh, I think like as mentioned before, I've always tried to go up, and I've always, you know, chose where I wanted to work based on the mentor there and the person that's there. So, you know, if you look at the track record, they've all been really great people. Alex Kern, Nick Wong, Mitch Orr, Josh Nyland, Pasi Petnan, and then I was in, you know, Denmark working for Christian Polisi at Manfred's, and I was at the sister restaurant of AOC called Number Two as well. And then, yeah, so they've all been equally as important to my growth and who I am today, definitely.
We haven't managed to twist Passy's arm to come on the show because he's so humble.
You won't get him.
But we love talking about him, and we know he's a listener. But tell us about working with him. What is it that you took from your time with him?
Well, you know what? Like when I was at Acme, he was helping out at the time. This is 2015. Mitch had just won Best New Restaurant, I believe. That's why I left Chocho, and Nick Wong was a bit upset with that. But I'm always on to the next best thing sort of thing. So I got there and, you know, very loud hip hop, you know, beautiful, you know, creative food. And Pussy came and helped out. And I remember Mitch told me, like, mate, we're having a very special bloke coming to help us out. Be a fucking sponge, soak it up. So I knew Pussy when I was quite young, I guess. And we actually, you know, we remained like actual friends. Like we still play golf. We were playing golf like many years ago. And then I was at Fred's with Danielle and he asked me to be his sous chef and I was pretty honored. And I spent 2.5 years there and like working with him, you know, like has definitely taught me about leadership. He's still pushing on. And he's in general a very charismatic, super, super funny, smart guy. And, he's still probably my favorite restaurant in Sydney. So, yeah, big shout out to Petteri, as I call him. Only he knows what that means.
You mentioned your time at working with Danielle at Fred's. It's such an open kitchen. You almost like you're in someone's sort of home in that part of the dining room. What was that like working in those circumstances?
It was really good, beautiful dining room. I was on the wood fire and stove section was pretty challenging cooking, whole dories in the fish cage and stuff. And working for Danielle was amazing. She's a really, humble, beautiful person. She has the best hugs. And, like just the venue itself was a little bit challenging. It's quite large. So
Yeah.
running up and down stairs with 20 kilo bags of onions and, the produce is here and it's like lunch has started and, so it was very physically taxing, not any more than any of my other jobs, but, no, working for her was great. You know, taught a lot about, it's very produce driven and, we'd make aioli with the mortar and pestle and stuff like that. And she had a lot of, cooking styles that, she wanted to keep bare bone and that translates on the plate very well. All you need is simple produce treated well and you're going to be successful, I think. So she killed it when she was at Fred's. Yeah.
I know speaking to you previously that you're very passionate about seafood and small producers. And what was your time like with Josh Nyland? What sort of impact did his seafood sort of approach to seafood have on you?
Yeah, impacted me a lot. I think for any chef, fish butchery is one of the most challenging things to do. It's also, there's no veil. You can't hide behind it.
Yeah.
If you fuck it up, it's done. And working for Josh in those early days, so I think I started, I trialed at Sixpenny and Daniel Puskas told me to go to St. Peter, which I respect him now for that because I was there 6 months after it opened and we were there through the a la carte dining 40 seat, brunch at 11 a.m. And it's like, it was crazy busy and like, we wait for him to come in. He's usually there first. He'd write on the whiteboard. Like he'd change basically every day, but he's an absolute genius, obviously. And I did learn a lot of fish skills there, but it wasn't until I worked at Fish Butchery when I came back from Berlin about 2 years ago. I just hit him up and said I might be going back to Berlin, but, I'd be interested to work at the butchery with you. And I ended up staying for over a year. So I really honed my skills at butchery, like obviously breaking fish down all day, every day.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's literally, he's the best. He's such a nice bloke.
You mentioned Europe a couple of times. Take us on a journey of your experiences cooking over there. And was it different to Australia?
Definitely different. I had a little stint at Verjus in Paris for a couple of months. And then came home and I went to Denmark for nearly a year and 3 months. I kind of went unprepared, but expecting that I'd get a job straight away. But yeah, it took me about 2 months to get a job. And I finally got one, and then my auntie passed away. And so when I was back overseas, I got told that I'd been fired. I was like, shit, that's savage. So I went back. I was staging for another 2 months everywhere. I basically staged everywhere. I did a day or two everywhere. And then, funnily enough, it was only through Tinder that I got my job at Manfred. So I matched with a girl. I was at my wit's end. I had minus $3,500 in my account for like 4 months. Thank God for Amex. And then I know this isn't a sponsored show, but Amex, use it. No, I'm joking. And she was like, I'm at Manfred's. And I was like, oh my God, sister restaurant to Relay for Christian Policia. Actually, my dream was to work at Relay. So I ended up like going for a trial, getting a job there. I was doing lunch service by myself. And then I was literally nearly at the point of signing, a sponsorship. And then COVID happened and I had to come home. It was so sad. Like I'd probably still be there because it truly is like one of the best places on earth. I hope to live there again one day, hopefully.
What's the first time I've ever heard Tinder getting someone a job like that?
I know, right? What are the odds?
Well, it sounds like you would love to be back there. What is it about that kitchen and that restaurant and that place that draws you?
I think there's definitely a lack of middle ground one hat dining there that we have here. Like I truly do think that we have the best casual dining scene in the world.
Yeah.
It was either low end or very high end over there, like 3 star or nothing. So like, yeah, I loved. It was interesting to see what can get Michelin stars. Like some kombu gelato and caviar will get you a long way in
Yeah.
Copenhagen. But I think I fell more in love with the city, despite the weather for 7 months. Like when it gets hot for 4 months in summer, it's truly like a 4 month festival. Like the how interactive the city is during summer is just like it's I think, to be honest, the best place in the world for summer for sure.
Mm.
Like you can drink on the street, which doesn't sound too exciting, but it changes the vibe. Like everyone's like every park bench is filled or strip of grass with people, dressed super nice. There's lots of bikes.
Yeah.
Um and the city's just old and it's just like, yeah, it's really beautiful. I have to go back there soon.
It sounds like you really didn't want to come home. What sort of impact did that have on you, sort of being forced into that sort of position?
Well, thankfully, my mum bailed me out. She sort of, she must have known something was going on. We actually weren't talking at the time, and then she called me. She's like, "Sam, you all right?" And I'm like, I just got fired, and I've got no money, and I'm, living in this weird apartment, and it's winter." And she's like, "You need to come home." And so she bailed me out, and before I knew it, I was at home for about a month, in the sunshine. She said I was the palest she'd ever seen. And it just redirected me. Like I think I was unemployed for about 4 or 5 months, just kept myself busy. And then this was at the time when it first started and everyone was freaking out and like jobs were being lost and there was no money around and like people were fucking terrified. And I just went out in a whim and I inboxed Danielle Alvarez on our Instagram, and I told her a little brief summary of where I've worked, and she said, "Come in," and she gave me a job during COVID. Yeah, she saved me.
What were you doing in the period of time sort of leading up to Chiswick?
Um, I was I was at DSE, DS and Eloise.
Mm.
Yeah,
So
I was there for maybe 5 months or so. Yeah.
it's one of everyone's favourite wine bars in Sydney. What was that like for you, that role?
Yeah, it was really good. It was I was somewhere previously, but this was definitely the first time where I could let my creative juices flow. And I took advantage of being able to cook my own food in a little bar that's been so well known for so long. And I really enjoyed, it was quite a challenging little spot in there, but I got what I could out of it, and worked very hard and tried to post a lot on Instagram, and yeah, it was really exciting for me to I still don't have enough money to open a business, but when you're young and you're a chef, all you need is a shot somewhere, um, to to shine, and like I feel like I did that. So it got quite busy, and yeah, had a couple of little events there, and yeah, it was good.
How did the role at Chiswick come up?
Funny story. So my girlfriend Brooke was actually working for Seconds at the time, that little app. So she was interviewing people. What's your favorite coffee? Where do you go? Where do you go for dinner? All that stuff. And she interviewed Matt at the Opera House, and she made a note to mention me to him. And I think shortly after that, he started following me, and then before we knew it, we were sitting at coffee. I asked him for a coffee and a chat. I didn't want to, but Brooke was like, "Nah, you should do it." I was like, "Nah, I don't know. It's Matt Moran. Like, I'm not. He's just gonna not reply." But he replied straight away, and yeah. And then we had a really good chat. He came in for dinner while I was at DSE, sort of scoping me out, and then yeah, it was like a bit of a month toing and froing with meetings and menu submissions and stuff. I think there was a couple of other guys in the mix, but in the end, I was super happy that himself and Laura Barato, who's a great mentor, they both chose me. So um, and now I'm at Chiswick.
Tell us about the creative process of a dish for you? Having had many dishes by you last week when we caught up, it's clear that you're incredibly creative with a really nice touch and big flavors. But tell us about your dish creation. Like, where does it start, and like, where is your end goal with the dish?
So, thankfully, there is no end to the creative juices that are flowing. Like, I'm always thinking about something. I just ruminate on something. Like, I can, I think on my first day at Chiswick, I wrote the new menu in about 10 minutes. I came into the kitchen. I said, right, this is the vision. That changed about 20 times. It changes every day. It's kind of annoying for everyone, but I also like to, produce my best work. So I don't know, like, for example, like I bought beautiful tropaire onions from Parisi 3 months ago, and I fermented them, and they're still in the cool room. And I've been thinking about doing like a beautiful tartare with them. And so it with like maybe some whipped goat's cheese, some caramelized onion, some hot English mustard or something. Just run it as a special. So I think I don't know. I think the produce. I mean, I can't switch off, to be honest. If we're gonna be completely honest, it's just always on the go. I wake up with dishes, and I go, "Let's do that today." And yeah, it's really rewarding to. They're always pretty nice. So I work out everything in my head, the flavors, what it's going to look like. I do it. Just like the barramundi event, I hadn't made any of those dishes before. Prepped it 4 days before. There was 100 people coming. I was like, shit, uh, what's going to happen here? But as it was going out, I rarely say this to myself, but I was like, mate, that's not bad. Like I was happy with it, which is rare. So
I can confirm it wasn't bad.
okay, good.
How do you get that balance though? You've got the history and the perception of what Chiswick is versus the lots of regulars as well, and your creativity. Like, how do you get that right in that mix?
Well, like I think about what would I expect if I was to sit down at Chiswick, like I can't just change the whole structure and not use the garden and
Yeah.
not take advantage of the room itself and how it's feeling, during the day, during the night. Like it's all about I feel like as a chef, you have to be pretty dynamic, bit of a chameleon. I think some chefs go good at one thing or two things, but to be able to, if I was a head chef at a Japanese restaurant or something, I'd like to think that I could just go to Japan, read some books, and cook some nice food, like because it makes sense to do that in that dining room. So I guess it's just, heroing the history of what Matt Moran has created and. Yeah, it's beautiful to be in the garden every morning. I go out there every morning with the bees and the butterflies and the ladybugs and I pick, I prune, and I create. That's it.
You've really slipped into the role there at Chiswick really quite nicely in a short period of time. But what's the sort of plan for you over the next year? Where do you want to take the food and sort of the venue?
I just want to keep elevating. I want to keep training the team. All the things I've learned. I love to teach. I like the rewards that come from people doing things right, whether it's techniques or plating or flavors, and I just want to elevate. Like I just myself always like to be better every day. Whether that's being faster at something or so it's just in my nature to you spend I don't know how long, probably long term there, and just get it like somewhere it's never been in my eyes, like my vision. I'd like to see it come to life, and we're just going to keep getting better every day and evolving, and I hope the menu gets bigger. I love sitting down to a restaurant having a huge menu. I think it's a real flex, so I want to just keep sort of adding to it and smooth sailing as well.
You're doing amazing things there. What sort of advice would you have for a young chef that's looking to sort of really build their career and build their skill set to do their own thing like you are now? What would you say to them?
Well, I think definitely the culture has changed a lot since my time. It's a lot more woke now. But I think at the core of, who I am and how I've become, the person I am and the skills I have is always going above and beyond, using my initiative to stand out. whether it's emptying the bin first, sweeping the floor first, like I'm very, very competitive. So like that's, worked in my favor. Doing things before you're asked, like it's so rare, and like it's worked for me. It's rare to find people that really, really go out of their way to stand out. And I think like, in this life, the more you put in, the more you get out. So my only advice would be make sure you love it, stick to it, and just don't stop. Just use your initiative and just like stand out without, I'd like to use my peripherals and see things, and like I don't know, it's good to stand out. Yeah.
That's some wonderful advice for any career, not just in hospitality.
Yeah, just work your ass off.
Yeah. Well, it's really exciting what you're doing there at Chiswick, and I can't wait to see where you take it. But what are you loving about what you're doing there at the moment?
I'm loving having, full autonomy, getting to do what I want. I'm loving all the customers. They all seem pretty happy. It's an open kitchen, trying to say hi and bye to most of them. I love having a big team. It's crazy. I think you're only as good as your team. My team are great. And like seeing, our hard work come to fruition, and seeing the menu where it is now and how it's gotten there has been a real delight. And as I said, we've got a beautiful garden. We've got red elk there at the moment, and lots of different herbs and stuff. We've got lettuce sprouting out of the ground. I go pick it every morning to put with our fish and chips, and it's just a really nice vibe. It's like it's a grounding job, and mind you, it's definitely a challenge, but I feel like I've been rising to it as much as I can.
Well, Sam, absolute joy to have you on Deep in the Weeds today, and can't wait to see where you take things at Chiswick. Please keep in touch, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thanks for having me, Huck. Appreciate it.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.